Welcome to TV Africa News. This is Africa Today. My name is Nahabi Kajura. First are the headlines.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
In the news today, President Museveni orders social media to shut down. Fish deaths at Lake Victoria and Lake Choga. African Development Bank to mobilize $6.5 billion for food security. And in sports, preparations are geared up in Cameroon. These and more stories in our bulletin.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Let's have the news in detail. The President of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, yesterday night ordered telecoms to shut down social media and messaging services just 2 days before a 10th presidential election. We have more on this story by Nalugo.
President Museveni said his order was a retaliation for Facebook's decision to delete pro-government accounts on suspicion of manipulating public debate before Thursday's key polls.
Those Facebook and those groups did not respond, I hear, and I'm sure the government has closed the social media. Those channels of Facebook and I don't know which one. This is unfortunate, but it is unavoidable. There's no way anybody can come and play around with our...
Museveni also warned the opposition against inciting Ugandans against voting in the forthcoming election on Thursday.
Because you know that next time I can again use intimidation, use violence, and be elected.
It should be remembered that on election day in 2016, Uganda cut access to social media, citing national security and mobile transfers of money. According to figures from the communications regulator, Uganda has 20 million internet subscriptions.
The government of Uganda has come out to clear the public on the recent information about the deaths of fish at Lakes Victoria and Choga. Speaking to journalists at the press conference held at the Media Center in Kampala, the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Animals, Industry and Fisheries, Mr. Pius Wakari Kasaja, said that the results got from the 3 government laboratories do not show poison, rather environmental factors.
A phenomenon that usually occurs on Lake Victoria and is associated with weather patterns. However, due to severe weather patterns in 2020 and last week, the extent of fish kills reported this time is higher than the previous episodes.
The Permanent Secretary added that fish kill is an annual phenomenon that usually occurs on Lake Victoria and other lakes and is associated with weather patterns.
Most known elements that kill fish in water: pesticides in the water, algae, and toxins in the water. 20 days and water getting turbid.
The current fish kills have been reported on Lake Choga in districts of Nakasongola, Kayunga and Lake Victoria in Wakisa district. According to fish scientists from the Fisheries Directorate and National Fisheries Research Institute, the research was held and the findings show no poisoning, rather attributed to environmental factors. The government has also reminded the public that this is a normal phenomenon that concerns almost every year and needs no harm in consumption of fish from the lake. Let's go for a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back from the break. You are still watching TV Africa, the right to know. An investigation is underway in France following the disappearance of a Senegalese student who was reported missing on January 4th.
The 20-year-old Diaresno, who attends a prestigious Parisian school, did not show up at the start of the Christmas holidays at the Louis Le Grand High School. Thierno Lay, for the president of the Federation of Senegalese Students, says they'll do what is necessary to find her. The young woman's godfather, who is the former Minister of Education and currently in charge of hydraulics in Senegal, Serine Baye Thiam, in his tweet on Sunday, thanked people for the mobilization and hoped to find his daughter.
Malawian President Lazarus has declared 3 days of national mourning after 2 members of his cabinet succumbed to COVID-19 on Tuesday. Local government Minister Lingson Balekenyama and the Minister for Transport Mohamed Sadiq Maya died in the capital city Lilongwe. The 2 are the highest-ranking public officials so far in succumbed to the virus in Malawi. President Chakwera said that they have entered the eye of the pandemic and the government is considering declaring a state of emergency. Malawi has recorded 9,027 cases and 200 fatalities. The Southern African nation has confirmed 15,000 cases in the last 14 days alone. On Tuesday, the presidency said that it was cutting visits to the State House to ensure the president's safety, and weekly press briefings have also been suspended. Let's go for a short break. Don't go away.
Marcus Mosiah Garvey was a Jamaican-born black nationalist who created a Back to Africa movement in the United States. He became an inspirational figure for later civil rights activists. Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica on 17th August 1887. The young star of 11 children, his mother was a domestic worker and his father a mason. He inherited a keen interest in books from his father and made full use of the extensive family library. As a boy, he imagined himself giving speeches to huge adoring crowds. He spent long hours reading and learning. His closest childhood friend was a young white girl. When they became teenagers, the girl's father put an end to the relationship, sent his daughter off to England, and told her never to speak to Garvey again because he was black. Under the colonial education system, at the age of 14, Garvey left school and became a printer's apprentice, where he led a strike for higher wages. From 1910 to 1912, 23-year-old Marcus Mosiah Garvey set out on a journey through Central America. Supporting himself and working as a journalist, he saw black people working on plantations, loading ships, and building the Panama Canal. To Garvey, farmers were the power behind the economy, but in their isolation from each other, they were powerless. He returned to Jamaica in 1914 and founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA. In 1916, Garvey moved to Harlem in New York, where UNIA thrived. By now a formidable public speaker, Garvey spoke across America. He urged African Americans to be proud of their race and return to Africa, their ancestral homeland, and attracted thousands of supporters. In July 1917, the city of St. Louis exploded in the worst racial riot the country had never seen. Hundreds of blacks and 39 whites were killed. Webb Du Bois, leader of National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and supporter of integration, led a silent march in response to the massacre. But to Garvey, This was no time for silence. It was time for black people to pull together and fight back. To facilitate the return to Africa that he advocated, in 1919, Garvey founded the Black Star Line to provide transportation to Africa, and the Negro Factories Corporation to encourage black economic independence. Garvey also unsuccessfully tried to persuade the government of Liberia in West Africa to grant land on which black people from America could settle. In 1922, Garvey was arrested for mail fraud in connection with a sale of stock in the Black Star Line, which had now failed. Although there were irregularities connected to the business, the prosecution was probably politically motivated, as Garvey's activities had attracted considerable government attention. Garvey was sent to prison and later deported to Jamaica. In 1935, he moved permanently to London, where he died on 10th June 1940. In 1964, his body was returned to Jamaica, where he was declared the country's first national hero. The Garvey movement was the greatest international movement of African peoples in modern times. At its peak, from 1922 to 1924, the movement counted more than 8 million followers. The youngest members of the movement were taken in at 5 years of age, and as they grew older, they were graduated to the sections for older children. Garvey emphasized the belief in the one God, the God of Africa, who should be visualized through black eyes. He preached to black people to become familiar with their ancient history and their rich cultural heritage. He called for pride in the black race. For example, he made black dolls for black children. He was the first to clearly demand for black power. It was he who said, "A race without authority and power is a race without respect." In emphasizing the need to have separate black institutions under black leadership, Garvey anticipated the mood and thinking of the future black nationalists by nearly 50 years. He died as he lived, an unbending leader of African nationalism, the symbols which he made famous, the Black Star of Africa and the red, black and green flag of African liberation, continued to inspire young generations of African nationalists. Simwogerere Balemezi, reporting for TV Africa.
Awarded for their contribution towards African liberation. Join the great men and women of Africa in Heroes Clips.
Mwalimu Nyerere was at the forefront of the most pressing issues for Africa at that time, the liberation struggle.
If in order to attain my ideals, I have to shoot back at that man.
And even I am still fighting for the whole black people all over the world.
Every day at 9:30 a.m. exclusively on TV Africa, Channel 45.
Welcome back from the break. You are still watching TV Africa, the right to know. And in our business news today, the African Development Bank will mobilize $6.5 billion to support efforts by countries in the Sahel improve food security. We have more on this story by Nalugo.
The president of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, made the pledge during the One Planet Summit hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron. Akinwumi said the future of the Sahel region depends on the Great Green Wall. The Great Green Wall initiative aims to plant an 8,000-kilometer long and 15-kilometer wide mosaic of trees grasslands, vegetation and plants across the Sahara and Sahel to help restore the degraded lands and help the region's inhabitants produce adequate food, create jobs and promote peace in the region. The countries targeted by the initiative include Burkina Faso, Mali, Senegal, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, among others.
And in our health news today, the President of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, has assured his citizens of the coronavirus vaccine that is soon to be available. We have more on this story. In his national address, President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the government is in negotiations with a number of different manufacturers that still need to be concluded, although they have so far secured 20 million doses to be delivered mainly in the first half of the year.
Secured 20 million doses to be delivered mainly in the course of the year and substantial amount of it in the first half of the year.
The new coronavirus strain is making an already dire situation worse, as Gauteng province, the country's most populous, which includes the cities of Johannesburg and Pretoria, with overwhelming number of patients treated on fields outside Steve Biko hospital buildings. South Africa has reimposed coronavirus prevention restrictions, such as banning alcohol sales, closing bars, enforcing a curfew, and limiting attendance at public gatherings, including church services and funerals. In his address, President Cyril Ramaphosa said that the government is in negotiations with a number of different manufacturers that still need to be concluded, although they have so far secured 20 million doses to be delivered mainly in the first half of the year. The new coronavirus strain is making an already dire situation worse, as Gauteng province, the country's most populous, which includes the cities of Johannesburg and Pretoria, with overwhelming number of patients treated on fields outside the Steve Biko hospital buildings. South Africa has reimposed coronavirus prevention restrictions, such as banning alcohol sales, closing bars, enforcing curfew and limiting attendance at public gatherings, including church services and funerals. And in our sports today, thousands of Cameroonians stopped at the most popular crossroads of the city to see the mascot called Tower in form of a lion, designed to promote the image of the African Nations Championship.
Just 2 weeks before the launch of the African Nations Championship to be hosted by Cameroon, the organizing committee decided to tour the host cities with the mascot, aiming at bringing the competition closer to the public. Douala will host 2 matches, Group B at the 60,000 capacity Jopama Stadium, with teams including Libya, Niger, Congo and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Group C matches will be played at the Omnisport Stadium of Bepanda, with teams from Morocco, Togo, Rwanda and Uganda. The mascot toured the city of Limbe, which will host Group D of the competitions this week.
Now, before we end our bulletin, let's have a recap of our top stories.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
In the news today, President Museveni orders social media to shut down. Fish deaths at Lake Victoria and Lake Choga. African Development Bank to mobilize $6.5 billion for food security. And in sports, preparations are geared up in Cameroon.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
That was the news on TV Africa. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We shall keep updating you.
This is Africa, and that was the news.